You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AfterBuzz TV's Real Housewives of New Jersey After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's Real Housewives of New Jersey After Show.
Ooh.
We're not sick of the song yet, are we?
Woo-hoo.
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey.
All right, I think enough is enough. All right, Diona, let's move on.
Alrighty. Hey guys, if you are tuning in, this is I can't hear myself. Okay, that's better. This is the after show for your favorite New Jersey housewives from the Garden State. And we need to get a lot into this after show recap, so we're not going to waste any time. I'm Diona Vaughan. You guys can tweet me at GoToGirlTV, and my co-host.
Hello. I am your host, Erika Garcia Rojas, and you can tweet me at IamEGR. Let's get started.
Love the new Twitter. Yes, let's get started. All right, blurred lines. It's time to blur you. All right, so before we get started, again, we love it when you guys make your comments on iTunes, on YouTube. There was a lot of comments from last week's episode.
Passionate fans, which is awesome.
A lot of passionate people. We all have our own opinions. I just want to be clear on that, and because if we all had the same opinion, it'd be really boring, you guys, all right? That's about it. Just want to remind you to download the show. It's completely free on iTunes. Keep those comments coming because we love them. We actually read them, and we like responding to them. So, keep it coming. All right. So, carrying on from last week. Yeah. So, Scum One, Scum All. I couldn't say that. Okay. So, at the top of the episode, we see Joe Gorga charging Joe Giudice. Mm-hmm. Okay. That was left off from last week. I find it interesting, and forgive me, you guys, but we might jump around a little bit because we have some really strong opinions about this. But I find it interesting where we all saw, Gorga charge him. Mm-hmm. But it seems like everybody else's memory about the incident, how the fight started, everybody just had a different opinion, which I'm confused. And I get sometimes how editing can get in the way and we're not sure, but we clearly saw Teresa go outside, tell her husband, he just called me scum, and then all hell ensued. Well, I got to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like everyone had the same opinion that it was Teresa's fault.
Yeah.
You're like, no, like it wasn't Teresa's fault at all. Mm-mm. And it was clearly, I mean, from our perspective, from a viewer's perspective, it was so clear how, Joe Gorga, ran after him and Giudice, Joe Giudice ran in saying, apologize to my wife. So he came in for an apology. He wasn't coming in a fight. I mean, he came in heated.
Right.
He came in very aggressive, but
right.
he was just, apologize. And Joe Gorga just ran into him.
He
charged him like a bull.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you're watching going like, oh my God. And then just all hell breaks loose. But still though, you don't really see Joe Gorga. You see him more defending himself as opposed to attack. I mean, sorry, you see more Joe Giudice defending himself as opposed to attacking Joe Gorga. Like it was more like, oh, get him off, make him off. I mean, they were both, once they were in there, they were both fighting and stuff. But it got ugly.
And let me be clear, Joe Giudice is not one of my favorite people at all. But I have to say, you know, in this situation, on this episode, he didn't start it.
No, he didn't.
You know, Joe Gorga gets very hot-headed, as we've seen from past, you know, seasons. You know, the whole christening. We see how heated he gets. You know, actually, both him and his sister are hot-blooded when it comes to their tempers. Yeah. But, you know, like I said, I'm not a fan of Giudice, but he didn't start this.
No, he didn't.
He didn't start this. And then what do you think about Melissa claimed, you know, you ran by, you didn't try to pull, you know, our husbands apart, you let them fight. I disagree with that, because everybody saw how Teresa went running outside saying, okay, somebody call 911, somebody call 911. I agree with Teresa in that instance, because, you know, these are like little women. Like, what are they, 100 pounds, 115 pounds? What are, like, you got two big guys going at it. Like, and we saw how Melissa got thrown into the window. So what was she supposed to do? Pull these men apart?
No, and you, I mean, you do see Melissa, I guess she assumed. I mean, the thing is, though, what did Melissa think Teresa was going to do? Like, that she really just, like, ran away? I mean, obviously, they don't, like, Melissa doesn't know that Teresa, like, at that moment, she didn't know. But, like, what did she think Teresa was doing? I agree. I think Teresa did the right thing. Right. I probably would have done the same thing. I would have run trying to get help, because, you know, as a female, it's hard to get guys apart from one another, and it's not safe. And they really needed to get some actual help, which is, if it wasn't for the fact that Teresa went out and got some, that fight might not have been broken up as soon as it did, or someone could have gotten really, really hurt.
If anything, it should have been Richie.
Richie. Where was Richie? Richie was kind of there.
Yeah, he was there. So if anything, it makes me want to go back and look at some pictures. But if anything, it should have been Richie. Should have been the one to intervene, or at least, you know.
I think he was I think Richie was there, and it looked like Kathy was. I mean, it looked like they were all there, and Teresa went to get help. The sad part is that now, you know, Melissa's like, oh, Teresa ran away, which, I mean, come on, like, well, obviously she's not gonna run away.
I think it's interesting because they both have the same issue with each other, because even Teresa said, you know, Melissa didn't try and do anything, and then Melissa has the same argument that Teresa didn't try and do anything. So it's interesting how both of them are seeing the same situation. I mean, that's a metaphor for this whole, you know, what's happening? Oh, phone.
Yeah. We're getting tweets. Tweets.
Oh, okay. Keep tweeting, y'all. But I don't know. I'm just as riled up just watching it, you know?
I mean, going into the deeper of the episode, and we'll talk more and more about it, but it just, and Joe Gorga said this. He's like, I have such hatred for my sister. Oh no, for Joe Giudice. This is 10 years of hatred that I have that has been bottled up and just is, you know, going, you know, any opportunity that I have to show him. He said something like that. I'm gonna do it. And so it's like, ooh, I mean, it's like he in some ways in his direct to camera, he's admitting that he was kind of the one that charged him. But what was interesting is that he goes and is crying, and Melissa's crying, and Melissa's like, oh my God. And I think Melissa really did think that Joe Giudice was the one to charge him. I think she thought that. Otherwise, you know, why would she say that? But what was interesting was that when she was in the room with Joe, her husband, you would have thought Joe Gorga would have said at least, like, you know, no, actually, I was the one, or kind of put some responsibility, because he clearly was the one who did it. He's the one that knew he did it, and maybe Melissa didn't see, maybe nobody else saw, but we all saw. You think Melissa saw it?
I was upset about that too. I was expecting for someone to take a little bit of responsibility for, you know, you clearly started a physical altercation. All right. So at least I was expecting Melissa to say, okay, babe, what the hell were you thinking? Yeah. Like, what was going through your mind? Why did you start this? It's like they didn't want to accept any blame. Yeah. It's almost like, you know, Joe Gorga, you know, I'm so mad. I've had all this pent up energy, 10 years. It's almost like he was trying to justify to himself why he charged him. And there's no justifying that. I'm sorry.
And if it was my husband, I'd be pissed. I mean, I'd be like, don't be attacking anyone. I mean, I guess what I was saying is with Melissa, I don't know if she saw or not. I don't know. And
she was there.
And you think she saw him charging? You think she's just kind of like throwing that under
I think she looked the other way, which I don't agree with 100%. You know, I don't agree with, you know. And, you know, here's another thing. Gosh, I'm all like
No, well, going back to that too, it did bother me that Joe Gorga was sitting there crying, kind of like, oh, I feel like, oh, this is awful, and I don't know if what he was saying, he was like, this is awful because I feel bad, but I don't think that's what was it. But I'm like, why are you sitting there acting kind of like the victim in the whole thing and crying when he was the one that charged him, and he was the one that started this physical fight, which was so wrong.
Yeah,
so wrong on so many levels. I know. We're all upset about it.
All right, I know. Well, let's move on for a moment. So what do you think about, it's funny how Richie didn't do too much, when they were in the heat of the moment with the fight. So he didn't do much when it come to that. But what do you think about Richie, basically blaming Teresa for starting everything?
Yeah.
So basically, Richie says to Teresa, look, you went outside to your husband and told your husband that he called you scum. Like, you started it. Now, I have to disagree with that, because how many times have we seen Melissa go back to Joe Gorga and tell her husband what Teresa has said about her? Mm-hmm. So I can't blame Teresa for that.
I don't blame Teresa for that either. I think, and I don't think there's anything wrong for Teresa to leave. Teresa was shocked by what Joe said, and Teresa just went outside to tell her husband. She was upset, and she told him, and and I don't blame Teresa at all. I mean, I completely blame Joe Gorga in this situation.
It just makes me wonder, like, what Richie's motives were for even sparking that up and making Teresa feel like this is your fault when it wasn't. It wasn't her fault.
And it makes you wonder, Richie it seems to just in that moment, from that statement, it just seems like he has it out for Teresa.
Well, clearly he does. Yeah. He talks so much shit about her.
He does.
We've heard a lot about that, but I thought that was wrong, and I don't think that Teresa should have any blame for that, because Melissa does the same thing. So it's like we're being hypocrites if it's okay for Melissa to go back and tell her husband, oh, Teresa said this about me, but she can't do the same thing. Yeah. So at the end of the day, both husbands are trying to
defend their wife. Yeah.
All right. So
and okay, this is one thing that I thought was interesting, because at one moment Rosie was sitting there and talking and kind of rehashing what happened outside, because she was outside. And she said, it sounded like she thought that Joe Giudice was actually the one to charge Joe Gorga.
That's what I'm saying.
That's why. So it's like, that's why I don't. So, like, what did everyone think they saw, or what did they see, or they, did someone did Melissa see it, but now she's just kind of lying about it, and did Rosie really not see, or does she assume that Joe Giudice was the one that charged? Because it wasn't really, no one really said, okay, who really charged who?
Well, yeah.
And Teresa came out and said, Joe Gorga did, and then Melissa's like, you weren't there, you didn't see it,
but
yeah.
But you were, and you don't want to admit that your husband
was the one that did it.
That started this.
Yeah.
And
so
whole
now
fight.
it sounds like Rosie thought that Joe Giudice was the one to charge.
Well, I think at the end of the day, I think everybody is always used to Giudice starting stuff like that. So I think in that sense, he gets a bad rap when it comes to situations like this.
And he did look like he was running actually inside. It did. From Rosie's perspective, I could see like, oh, he did run inside.
Right.
So maybe that's what she was referring to, and not the actual what happened inside. But I don't know.
And I actually really appreciated Rosie's whole part in all this.
Yeah.
Even before getting to this retreat, we all know that she's very, very pivotal in all of this coming together. And I liked the sidebar conversation, when she was just talking to Joe and saying, go talk to your sister. We're not going to leave. They're 4 hours out, so I'm glad that everybody made the decision to stay and like really deal with the issues. And I loved how she was just almost in a sense like, what did you need those team builders for? Yeah. It's like, have Rosie do this. But I loved how she was really influential in having Joe, go and confront his sister. And then,
well, I mean,
what happens?
Well, not just that, later on, when Joe's crying and and he says, and it becomes kind of a theme later on, like, oh, I hate her, that like sent chills, because it's like, yeah, you're fighting your brother and sister and all that, and he's upset, and Teresa's upset for all these, the last few years, all this, but to say I hate her, that is such a strong thing to say about another sibling. And you're just like, God, it's a very strong word. And it was sad to hear him say that. Yeah. And then, it gets brought up later on. But, he's sitting there crying and this whole thing. And then Rosie, meanwhile, is in the other room, saying, okay, Teresa. And Teresa's upset. Teresa's like, I'm upset too. What? I'm not upset. I'm upset too.
Exactly.
And Rosie's like, well, do you want to work this out? And Teresa's like, yeah, I do. I want to work it out. He's like, well, then go talk to your brother. Go talk to your brother. And you could see, and Joe Judah's just like, nah. He's like, oh, whatever. You're like, let's just forget about it, whatever. And Teresa's like, okay, fine. I'll go. So she walks over, tries to talk to her brother. And then Melissa intervenes.
That really pissed me off.
Yeah,
like, here's the one opportunity. This is why everybody, was at this retreat, at this castle, at St. George. They haven't spoken really in, a year. Their relationship is screwed up. And here, Melissa basically holding the cards in her hand and says she won't leave. Yeah. That pissed me off.
That pissed me off, too. Because I understand that they're husband and wife and, whatever. But the thing is, though, this is his sister. And such a traumatic thing just happened. And, like, they need to talk. Mm-hmm. And it's like, just give them. And even Rosie was like, dude, Melissa, just leave.
Yeah.
Just, they're not going to kill each other. I mean, just let them talk. And it would. And finally, you see when the two of them have an alone moment together, how important that was and how critical and pivotal it looks like it is going to be. But that just made Melissa look really bad, I think.
Do you think Melissa is like insecure about something, or do you think it's just genuinely, okay, my husband, well first of all, her husband just started a fight, so she made it seem like, look what just happened, that's why I'm not letting them speak to each other. Well, what just happened was because of your husband. Yeah. So, like, it makes me feel like, do we think she's insecure about something? Do we think that, like, she's not wanting, Teresa to be alone with her husband because it might reveal something about her? Like, what do you think?
I don't know. Like, after seeing this episode and Melissa's behavior and stuff, it's just like you feel like you almost get the sense that she just doesn't want... She just, like, doesn't want them to work it out. Like, she doesn't want... She's afraid of what could happen when the two of them are alone.
Well, she's threatened.
Yeah. So she's afraid of what Teresa... the fact that they will work things out again. Because it really does seem like Joe has, up to this point, made up his mind about his sister and that he's completely done. And that, him and Melissa, I'm sure, have lots of conversations and a lot of things. And she's kind of got him wrapped up around her finger and controlled in a way, and threatened of what could be said or what could happen if the two of them are alone.
Because that was just in that moment, because I was just thinking this whole time, this is what everybody's been working towards. Everybody's been working towards Teresa and her brother talking and getting it out, hugging it out with each other. Yeah. And here the opportunity comes and she's standing in the way. Yeah. So it's like, what the hell?
And clearly Joe and Melissa are upset or hurt about things Teresa has done. Things Teresa has said, supposedly said, who she's hanging out with, all that. But it is also clear that Teresa wants to work on it and wants to try and make things work. Like, why would, and so at this point, at this point, now it's like Melissa's like not. For her not to leave, it says a lot of like, granted, they have every right to be upset, but it says a lot about her and what she wants and what she feels is good for, her and Joe.
Well, and I mean, you and I, we've said this a lot, for our recaps, but like, lately I'm not on anybody's team. Like I'm calling it like, we're calling it like we see it
like per episode, because I'm fans of them
because
all.
you get some different stuff and you get different behavior every single episode, and I think that's what people were so up in arms with on YouTube with their comments.
And to your point on that too, real quick, is that we were limited to what the producers show us too. I mean, you can kind of speculate and this and that, but like I just like to view the episode as I see it and all that. And you can read the blogs and get more inside perspective.
Right.
But the thing is, though, when we film this show, we don't have the opportunity to read a lot of the blogs from this week's episode.
Right, exactly.
Because we go right in here and film it. But then
Right.
when you go back and you can read them, then
you get a different
perspective. So for you guys, also, so you know, we're going straight off of watching the episode. We're not doing any researching.
There's no
we don't have the time to do that.
Yeah, we view it and then we come in here and we sit down and we talk about it. So I don't know if that helps, you know, with anybody's comments that they make. But what was I gonna say?
We're talking about how every week we get new information.
Yes, every week new information. But, like, I will say, like, you know, on some previous episodes, I've kind of been, okay, like, I get where you're coming from, Melissa. Yeah, but, like, you know, kind of lately, like, her true colors are kind of, they are starting to come out. And this episode especially, I was just like, whoa, what are your motives?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. And no matter what Teresa did in the past, whether she did set them up, whether she didn't, whether Jacqueline did, all that, you know, whatever happened in the past, still when you've got a brother and sister, family that are trying to work things out.
Right.
Like to kind of it looks like she's just trying to put a stop to it. Melissa is.
Right.
And then, like Diona, like you said, like why then? Why? If you really, if you have your best interest of your husband at heart, then why do you not want them to reconcile? Why are you
standing in the way?
Because Joe is clearly hurt about the fact that him and his sister don't get along, and not just because he's losing a relationship with his sister, but because of the effect it has on his parents as well. So yeah,
really interesting. Really quickly, Teresa's blog was really, really good from last week. It was 7 pages long.
After reading it, you're like, whoa.
Exactly. And she makes a comment. She goes, she's very, very lucky that I'm keeping quiet about the things I do know. Let's just say if you believe one word out of Melissa's mouth about anything, I'm sure she has a bridge she can sell you too. God bless you both. So,
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. But moving on for a second.
Well, no, actually, one quick thing I do want to bring up. I did find that it was interesting that Teresa was after the fight and after they broke it up, you saw Teresa pulling her husband. Let's go. It's for our children. Let's go. And I thought that was really, I liked seeing Teresa say that, because you could see like her head was on straight. Like she was watching the situation and she was like, oh no, I don't want my husband. This is what I'm thinking. She's thinking, I don't want my husband to look like he's the one who was instigating this or was continuing this fight. Right. So she pulled him away, and he was all heated from the fight, and she pulled him away and it's like, it's for our children. Think of our girls, think of our children. Yeah. And I was like, wow, you know, like, yeah. I mean, she made a good point, and it is important to think of that, you know.
I don't know. I really, really question her motives. And
Melissa's?
Yeah. And I can't believe I'm going to say this right now, but I have to say, in this episode, let me preface that, Joe Giudice, he kind of surprised me. You know, we saw a tender moment with him, you know, really supporting Teresa and really just saying, look, you know, whatever you need, I'm here.
It's just the two of us.
Exactly.
This is the first, I do have to say this is the first time I've actually oh, how sweet. Like, almost like where I saw the relationship, like I saw what Teresa sees in him, when I saw like what she's so attracted to about him, like, you know, it's like, oh wow, that was a really sweet thing for him to do. And it was sad when you saw them hug, and then Teresa she kind of broke down, and you're just like, oh, I was touched. I saw the relationship and the love that they had
for the first time. I feel like, because he was really there when she needed him, and I really appreciated that, because you could tell, like, you know, I know it's reality TV, but like I feel like these moments they're sincerely real. I mean, I know I know it's produced and stuff like that, but I really, you know, she was broken. I mean, those feelings really can't be produced. Yeah, those feelings are real. The tears were real, and I really liked how he was really like supporting her. So
and you do get the sense of, he's like, I don't hate Joe Gorga. He's just defending his wife. Like, he's just defending Teresa. He's there just to defend Teresa. And you actually see that in episodes past. He's always on Teresa's side. Right. He is. He's kind of like, and I mean, that's you see that, and you clearly saw that here. So I don't know, but All right.
Okay. Moving on to the phone call. So, Teresa reaches out to Caroline for help. I mean, did did we ever think in a million years, that we would see this? But, she's reaching out to Caroline because, she's trying to break through to her brother. And we know that Caroline, she's the one that, Joe actually reached out to talk through all this mess. Like, what do you think about what do you think about her involving Caroline, considering she wasn't, she didn't come for a reason, and so now she's reached out to her?
This is part of the show that you're like, okay, now how much of this is being produced? How much are producers telling him, okay, we got to throw Teresa and not Teresa, we got to throw Caroline and Jacqueline back in the mix, otherwise the entire episode will go by and we won't see them, or they'll have no relevance now. So it's like, the part of me is like, because Teresa, Teresa knows that Caroline kind of has told Teresa's like she's more, or Caroline has exhibited behavior recently to show that she's kind of more on Melissa's side.
Well, I think, just in some earlier episodes from this season, I think Caroline was definitely kind of like, with
Melissa? Yeah.
kind of like keeping her eyes and ears open when it comes to Melissa, and not necessarily, believe in everything that she's selling. And I think she's been keeping an open mind. Whereas before, probably even into last season, I think she was definitely Team Melissa. Yeah. But now I think Caroline is like, okay, let me step back.
But I wonder if Teresa's actually seen it. We've seen it, but has Teresa really seen it? I don't know. And then I wonder, it just never seems like Caroline has really had Teresa's back. And so I don't know. It just didn't ring true to me that the first person she'd call would be Caroline. I mean, maybe part of it has to do with the fact that, because of Jacqueline's involvement, and she really wants that somehow in there. I don't know. But I thought that was kind of weird, and I don't know. She didn't really. It'll be interesting to see next episode Caroline's part in this, because
because she shows up at the end.
Really
she showed up at the end along with Dr. V.
Yeah. Dr. V.
Let's talk about Dr. V. First of all, I think it's funny. I don't know if you guys know this, but Dr. V, she's a Los Angeles-based clinical psychologist, and she was actually on a Bravo show called LA Shrinks, which is actually a great show. Did you watch that show?
I didn't watch it. But after really now seeing Dr. V, I kind of want to watch it.
Dr. V, and she's like a really good, relationship, type of a doctor. But I just think it's funny how Teresa's like, oh, well, I know Dr. V from friends in L.A., and I'm flying her out here. I'm like, okay, now this is really produced, because she just came from a Bravo show.
Well, she could be friends with the producers by now. I mean, it could be a friend, I mean, she's been on this is she's been on Housewives Jersey for a few years. Friends could be producers. Maybe she's not.
I wasn't buying that line at all, that she knew her. I mean, she's in LA. They're on the East Coast.
It was very planned.
It was extremely planned. Yeah. I mean,
cross promotion.
Yeah, a lot of cross promotion, because Dr. V's been, she's been popping up on different shows, in the past couple weeks. She was on The Real. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I'm like, okay, well, let's call this out, because, But here, she made a really, really good point when she sat down with Teresa, and I'm glad that she said it, because I think people have been trying to say this to Teresa, but somehow it's just not getting across in the right way. But I actually verbatim, she says, a lot of what you tell people is consistently misinterpreted. And she goes on to basically say, well...
And Teresa's like, it's true. Right. Yeah. And then she continues, Dr. V continues, and then says...
Yeah, basically, you're the common denominator in this. You need to maybe take a look at yourself. And on that note, I think we have a caller.
Oh.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name's Tasha. I'm calling from Brooklyn, New York.
Hey, Tasha.
Welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to make this short, because I just saw today's episode, and I thought, what a crazy family. I don't know. They were like, some of them were acting like, oh, it's normal. I think Loki has said it's normal. And I was like, no, that's not normal for people to act that way.
No, it's not. And that's how you know all of this is just so juicy and real.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm going to have to say, I have to say, though, I am a Jacqueline fan. I chose Jacqueline over Teresa.
Okay.
I know people saying Jacqueline is cray-cray, but it's like they were so close as friendship, as friends.
Okay.
And Teresa threw her under the bus after that last season, saying that Jacqueline, like, started this. I mean, that's gotta hurt for someone you were so close to, like a sister, to basically just turn around and stab you in the back.
Well,
I can understand getting mad to the point that you want to shake her or hit her. Anytime you hear her voice, you know.
Well, you know what? I'm actually glad that you brought this whole Jacqueline thing up, because we really haven't touched on it too much. But I would also, did you read Teresa's blog, the current blog post?
No, because for me, Teresa has her good points and bad points, but she takes up with her husband so much that it's like, I just can't anymore with her advice. I just can't.
All right, well, as soon as we wrap up your call, we're going to talk a little bit more about what you just brought up, and keep a close ear, because it might change your opinion about Jacqueline.
Yeah, because I think, Tasha too, Diona and I talked about this too, and the whole situation, it gets it's a little muddy when you're watching the show, and then when you do go in and read some of the blogs, you're like, okay, you know, but still at the same time, you know, you don't know, at the end of the day, you don't know what's true, what's not true, because each person's entitled to put out what they want on those blogs, and they're entitled to put their side of the story.
Exactly.
And as viewers, you just have to I guess, like, piece together, and everyone, like you said, Diona, is entitled to their own opinion.
Exactly.
Who they like, who they feel's lying, who they feel's not. So.
All right. Well,
thank you for the call, Tasha.
Thanks for calling,
and we'll bring that point up.
And we're bringing that point up right now. So thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, so thanks to our caller, Tasha, we're going to go into this whole Jacqueline
You want to go into it?
Let's just get it out there. All right. And so no one can bash us. I'm going to be reading something verbatim. All right, so here's the deal. So I'm talking about last season at that the Posh fashion show. So Kim D, all right, we know she's notorious for causing some trouble, but Kim D explained that Melissa was going after her business and her livelihood.
And this is on Teresa's blog.
Exactly.
So this is from Teresa's
This is from Teresa's. Yeah, exactly. So basically, Kim D claimed that Melissa was going after her business and going after her livelihood. So Kim D was upset with Melissa, and it was Kim D that wanted to get back at Melissa, and who basically brought this whole guy, you know, into the Posh.
The bald guy.
Yeah, the bald guy.
That worked at the stripper joint.
Who you know, was insinuating that Melissa was a stripper. All right, so Melissa was mad at Kim. Kim was mad at Melissa, okay? Enough said. So apparently Kim apologized, and Melissa and Joe apologized to Kim. I'm going to say that again. Kim apologized about what happened, and Melissa and Joe apologized back to her.
And what did they apologize to Kim about?
Just everything. Whatever Melissa was doing to hurt her business. Okay? So, should have been a done deal, right? All right. Except Jacqueline got involved. So Jacqueline told Joe Gorga that it was Teresa, okay, and not a thing with Kim. So, and for some reason, and these are Teresa's words, okay? And for some reason, I will never understand, my only brother, my own flesh and blood, chose to believe Jacqueline over me. I know this because he told me. He told me what Jacqueline said, that he believed her, and then texted me, "You're dead to me." And we didn't speak for a year following that. Not over the holidays, not through the hurricane, nothing. So yes, I blame Jacqueline. Why wouldn't I? She knows she was lying. She knows her words had power because she was my friend and she told my brother anyway. So that essentially explains why Teresa is making Jacqueline accountable for what's going on with her brother. It's her lies about this. So that's that, you know, because some people have been making some comments. So I just wanted to clear the air with why that happened. And then also Teresa kind of went on to say she really thought that Jacqueline was going to come to the retreat because she really wanted to get that, you know, off the table. And she really wanted for Jacqueline to come to the retreat so she could admit to her brother her part in it all. She wanted Jacqueline to basically say, yes, I lied to you, and said it was Teresa, knowing that it wasn't her. So she wanted Jacqueline there to basically admit her wrong.
But Jacqueline, when you see her and you see her on the show, you wonder, okay, what obviously she was hurt by something Teresa did with the whole, you know, the whole fight that her and Teresa had last season. And I mean, it'd be interesting. I haven't read Jacqueline's blog on it if she goes into detail about it yet, so I haven't read her blog.
Well,
recently.
her perspective is, you know, she didn't think that she got a true, honest invitation to this retreat. Because remember at one point, Teresa was like, I dare you to come, I dare you. You know, she's like, I don't call that a true invitation. So that was her perspective. She didn't want to get involved. She didn't want to come. But on Teresa's side, and based on what Teresa was saying in her blog, she said that she, up until they got to the actual retreat, she didn't know that they weren't coming. She thought that they were coming.
Yeah.
And that's why she wanted her there. She wanted her there because she really wanted to clear the air about everything. And that's why these two, you know, even though they had a 10-year relationship, that's why it's really
But
broken.
even if Jacqueline was, okay, I know, because, no, my point, that my question there was more to do back, like way back when she did this at the fashion show, supposedly like she set them up. So I know, you know Jacqueline was really upset at Teresa at that point. They had a big fight,
right?
And if and this is according to Teresa that it was set up, and Jacqueline probably did. I don't know, but we don't really know what happened. But if Jacqueline did do that, that's pretty nasty.
Tell me about it.
You know, like if Jacqueline really set it up, that is pretty nasty. So then the next question is, okay, so if Jacqueline did set it up, then why is it that Melissa and Joe aren't even listening to Teresa's side, or even wanting, like, full blown, completely 100% taking Jacqueline's side on this? Like, why is that then? It doesn't make, I mean, and then you could go deeper and say, well, is it because this is what Melissa always wanted, is for for Teresa and Joe not to be involved together as brother and sister.
Well,
have that relationship.
I also think
because you could go so many different layers as to why this person did that and that person did that, and
I also think they're not believing Teresa, because just kind of like, and we can get back to this if we have time, but just kind of like Dr. V was saying, you know what, you seem to find yourself, people are consistently saying they misinterpret what you say. The common denominator is you. And I think the reason why Joe and Melissa are believing Jacqueline over Teresa, because she's got a history of finding herself around the wrong crowd at the wrong time, and everybody's talking smack about, her sister-in-law.
And then, that was a lot of the comments that we read about too, is that people were like, well, why is it okay for Melissa, why is it not okay for Teresa to talk to, Kim D and all that, but it's okay for Melissa to talk to Caroline and Jacqueline, right? And so, because supposedly, Caroline and Jacqueline have all these outs, with Teresa, but now Melissa's talking to them. So, like, why is one okay over the other? But almost like when you look at the relationship with like Teresa and Joe, you almost want and need for Teresa, in a sense, to be that bigger person, because she's the one saying she wants to work on the relationship with her brother. Like, she's the one saying, like, that's so important to me. Melissa, this isn't her sister, right? And it's like not her family, and so you almost need in this situation for Teresa to be that bigger person and maybe cut ties with Kim D. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, and so. It isn't okay necessarily for Melissa to go and talk smack, to Caroline and Jacqueline about Teresa. That's not okay. I mean, none of it's okay. And but you almost, in some ways, you see Joe and Melissa upset that Teresa's talking or associating herself with Kim D, and that's where part of the confusion lies, I think, because they're like, well, if Teresa, if you didn't set it up and Jacqueline set it up, why still are you here with Kim D? Why are you still in that circle? Why are you still around it? So it doesn't help Teresa's case or her defense, the fact that she is still surrounding herself with Kim D. And even if Kim D is a long life friend of Teresa's, Joe is still Teresa's brother. And when it comes to a family over a friend, in this case, maybe Teresa would have to cut ties. Right, with some of these people. If it's not Teresa's fault. If it's not Teresa's fault that this whole thing went down, because if ultimately her goal is to work this out with her brother, that might be something she might have to do.
Choosing blood over water.
And with Melissa, to the point of Melissa associated with Caroline and Jacqueline, part of it is like, they're castmates of the show too. So like, I don't know. I mean,
well, let's see here. We only have about 5 minutes left. So
I know there's so much to talk about.
But let's switch gears, and I'd love to talk about the progress that it looks like Dr. V is starting to make with Teresa and Joe. I'm actually like, I really liked her presence, and I think they kind of kind of, what were they called? Steve and Opie or whatever. Opie and I'm just
the team builders.
Yeah, the team builders. I think I think that when she walked in the door, she's gorgeous. She's from LA. She's got the blonde hair. She's beautiful.
And she's Italian.
She's Italian, but I think that they got a little bit more than what they bargained for with her, especially when she sat around the table. I love when she sat at breakfast with them, and she's like, let's talk about it. Yeah. Melissa, how do you feel? And I love that she kind of just put her on the spot. Everybody's there for the same purpose. So why can't you talk about, what's been happening, amongst all these people in an open forum? I kind of like that she did that. What did you think?
I liked it too. And you do kind of in this scene too see other, Melissa's side coming out too. Like, she's like, well, I can't talk about it now that Teresa's in here. And you're like, ooh.
Okay. I didn't like that.
I didn't like that either. There was a little bit of like, it was like an attitude, and like, and a lot of the comments said the same thing. The people who were commenting like on the, on our YouTube and in iTunes, it did look like they just, Melissa and Joe just had a bad attitude about this whole thing from the get-go. And you really saw that. You really saw that when Dr. V was sitting there and Melissa's like, like, well, I can't talk about it. And Teresa's like, why? Just talk about it. Just say it. And Dr. V was like, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's all talk about it. So we can all talk about it. And then Joe said something, and then Dr. V's like, you want to get started with it? How about let's go.
You be the first one.
You'll be the first. We'll do a one-on-one. You'll be the first one. And
I love that she was a little underestimated by that group.
I think so too.
Because I think already they were underwhelmed with the team builders. And so then she pops in, and they're like, okay, here comes another one. But I'm glad that she, especially with Joe Gorga, she's like, okay, let's go.
And I thought Dr. V had a lot of we even saw just a little bit of but like some really insightful things, the fact that Teresa's always been protective of her little brother. And then you start to see too, like even just when they're all sitting there at the table, you've got these strong women. You got Teresa, you've got Melissa, and you got Joe kind of sitting there like crouched down like a little boy, like, and these two strong women like battling it out. And Joe doesn't say anything to even defend his wife. Like, the whole thing's like, oh, me and my wife, and Melissa's always jumping in to defend Joe, and, it's the two of us. But then if, Joe's kind of just sitting there, you're like, huh, maybe he part of it's like, he does maybe like the fact that Melissa's strong, and they kind of replaced that role for his sister. I don't know, but you see some of that family dynamic come out, and
I don't know. I think there might be a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
I hope so.
I'm glad that we saw them hug. And like clearly we're going to talk a lot more about this next week, because we're going to see, Caroline shows up. I'd love to see like what her role is in all of this. Oh God, so much.
Well, I mean, like just real quick, that last scene with Melissa and Joe, I almost feel like being such a fan of the show and been watching since the get-go, and a fan of just everybody and the relationship. It was really good to see the two of them finally together, and having someone who has. The thing is with Dr. V, and what's good, and you do see Melissa listening to her, and you do see Joe listening to her, because Dr. V has no involvement.
Exactly.
She's completely non-biased. She's not on anybody's side.
Right.
And the problem with anybody else getting involved is even
They've got
Caroline.
a side.
They have there's history. There's something. So what Dr. V says is coming from a purely outsider's perspective.
Objective.
An objective. That's what I was thinking. I'm trying to think of objective and thankfully Teresa respects Dr. V because she's Italian, and it sounded like you could tell from that last therapist neither one of them could relate to him or respected him, and so you're glad. Okay, they both, Teresa and Joe, hopefully Joe does, but they're listening to this woman, and when she's talking and saying a lot of the points she's saying, you finally see the walls coming down a little bit, especially with Joe, because Joe is really closed off, and he's been really closed off. And he called her sister Scum, and he's done. And him and his wife are ready to pack their bags and be gone with this family and this relationship, or at least with Teresa. And you see it slowly coming down, and it was so. I actually started crying at the end of the episode. I had a few tears because when you saw, just when you have family and I know, emotional. Yeah, I have sisters. It is emotional, and when you see Joe say like Teresa and like give her that hug, I was like, oh my God, because you could see it.
Breakthrough.
You see something. It's not going to be solved now. They're still going to have major issues, but the little light of like there's still some love. And then Teresa saying, I don't hate you. Like, I don't know what this hate's all about. Like, I don't hate you. And the hate, and I don't like that you hate me. Like we said before,
hate is a very strong word, and I don't like the use of it, especially when you're talking about your relative. You know, like, come on. Yeah. So we're out of time, and I'm glad that we're ending on a good note, and I think we've got a lot more of this to talk about next week, and we're going to see more of it next week.
We are.
And before we peace out, I just want to remind you guys, you have to check out Serial Buddies on iTunes, okay? It's so funny. No, seriously. It's funny. It's a funny movie. I believe the download is only $5.99. And by purchasing the movie, you are supporting AfterBuzz TV and, supporting our studios. We got lots of new stuff going on in the studios, and it's amazing. And it's because of the fans, because of you guys that help make that happen. So I just wanted to give that a shout out and make sure you guys remember to download Serial Buddies. And then let's see here. I feel like predictions, we don't even really need to go there because we're finishing next week.
When you read the blogs and stuff, and you do kind of get bummed because after this episode, you're like, oh my God, are they going to make up? But then when you read the blogs, you're like, sounds like
I know.
So you're like, so my prediction could be like, I don't know, maybe they make up, but then they go back together again. And then I think Dr. V said, or somebody said it. Actually, I think it was the team builders, and we can end on this. The team builders are like, the good thing is that you guys are really passionate. Yeah. And then the passion is what kind of makes the fight happen, but the passion is what's going to bring you guys together. Hopefully. And so at some, that they've got passion, and hate comes from love and being hurt. So the worst thing would be is if they're indifferent. Yeah. So at least there's something. There's got to be love, because if there's hate, there's love, there's everything. So on that note.
And I also wanted to just, a lot of people have been making comments, where's Susan? Susan is working on a fantastic project, and hopefully she will be back with us soon. She didn't just abandon us here. She's doing her thing, and
taking a little break.
She's taking a little break, and we miss her too. So I just wanted to shout that out and let you guys know, since you've been asking about Susan. And then and instead of news and gossip, I wanted to do a couple shout outs because there's so many comments. So I just wanted to make sure we kind of recognize some of the comments.
And we appreciate the comments.
We do.
And we always tell you, we say comment, and we love the fact that you guys are commenting in like the good, the bad. Because here at AfterBuzz, we're here for you guys. Like, our show here is for you guys, the listeners and the fans. And whatever way we can make it better for you, or, whatever way that things that you want, we love the feedback.
We do. Awesome. We really like the feedback, and just everybody keep in mind, it's we all have opinions, Miss Lisette Tria, but we all have opinions, and that's what makes this a great show, because we're able to talk about how we feel. We're super fans about this show. Sometimes we get things a little mixed up or wrong or right, whatever, who doesn't? But I just think it's important to keep that in mind. I just want to shout out to a few people. Let's see here. Antonio Sergi, he made lots of comments on Facebook. Thanks for the shout outs. As well as Lisette Tria. The Madness Show? I think that's the Madness Show. Okay. And then from Twitter, Real Housewives _gossip. They love us here. Hopefully they'll call in. Bravo, Housewives Dish, Krista813. Do you have anybody you want to shout out to?
No, the same all. I mean, just everybody in general, like anyone who comments, and we love it, all of it. So thank you for that. Thanks for listening.
Keep it coming because we definitely read them and we love what you guys have to say. So we will meet up with you guys again next Sunday and we will continue this juicy bit of recap.
And where can we find you, Diona?
Yeah, thank you. I'm like tired of talking. You guys can find me on Twitter at Go2GirlTV. That's GO2GirlTV. Tweet me. I'll tweet you back. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter as well at IamEGR.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
See you next week.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later! Woo!
Views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.